Nice. Hi, folks. How are you all doing? Good evening, and thank you so much for joining me. All right, let me check to see who reached who here. Hi, is Clevis. Hi, Clevis. Hi, June. How things? Hi, Fireball. Hi, Zion. Hi, Paula. Hi, Avril. Carol. Sha'Gary. Hi Sharon, good evening to you. Jennifer, Tali, Sheldon, Bliss, Eiffel Tower. How are you doing? How things going? So thank you so much for joining me this evening. I know that for the most part, let me say with COVID done, because COVID ain't done. We had cases today and we had persons dying today. But I know with the resumption of, people's normal lives for the most part, y'all could be doing so much more, so many other things with your time, whether it's a Friday evening or a Sunday evening. So I'm always grateful, when I come and I sort out and put on a live to have people showing up regularly and happy to be here. So Josiane, Barbara, Joseph, Shaquille, Rosanna, Sule, Keon, Pamela, all of you on both Facebook and YouTube, because I'm seeing the YouTube persons as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. So this week I am doing a weekend review. I didn't get a chance to do like a proper weekend review last week because we had the interview with David West, the PCA director, and I didn't want to make the life too political, if you understand, because he is part of an independent entity. And so because the weekend review tends to focus a lot on current affairs and political issues, I didn't want a situation where I was compromising any of my guests, because analyzing and reviewing the major stories of the week can lead to there being political views being expressed. So because I didn't want to taint anything for any entity, I didn't go too much into the politics last week. But this week I don't have any guests. I didn't bother to get any guests together, and I thought I definitely doing a weekend review, and I'm doing a proper weekend review. Hi Charlene, Fleming, Thomas, Anne McCarthy. Folks, let's wish Anne McCarthy a good evening and a recover well. Anne ended up in the hospital this weekend. I'm not going to go into too many details about why or how Anne ended up in the hospital this weekend, but she's there, or was there. She may be at home now recovering. So good evening, Anne. Thank you so much for tuning in, and of course recover well, recover safely from whatever is the problem that's ailing you. Hi Maria Charles, hi Jaya Gordon, Elke Ramona. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. So Elke Ramona, thanks for being here. Shariza Mohammed Santana, thanks for being here. Claire Irish, Tara Noel, Maria Diaz, Ricardo Coca. I like to hail people out on the lives because I feel, all you're taking time out all your lives to be here with me on a Sunday evening. So big up to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. And let's get into this weekend review, because there's a number of things that I wanted to be able to talk about. And I sat down making my little notes and thing. So here we go. Where am I starting, boy? Let me scroll down and get to the bottom of things. So there we go. One of the first things I want to do is this. Well, not this thing that I'm doing here, where I've got two of me at the same time on the screen in front of you. That's not one of the things I wanted to do. This is just me setting things up properly. Right. So I wanted to have you all take note of this. NEDCO is having a 4-day virtual conference looking at entrepreneurship. And I wanted folks who are here on the live and who are business people or becoming business people, because remember we started talking about ways to invest your money, ways to become better business persons, and Antonio Declan Ross is going to be back with me very soon, and we're going to be talking about how to start up, like efficient, smart ways to start up a small business. And then I saw that NEDCO, that's the National and Entrepreneurship Development Company, they have a 4-day virtual conference that's free. So you sign up for it, you go online, you go to their website, nedco.gov.tt, and you on the opening page of the website, you see the information for the virtual conference. And it's not something that you have to physically show up for. You can log in via your computer, and each day, 4 days, have different things. And it starts on the 2nd of August, so that's next week, Tuesday, if I am not mistaken. Let me just check my calendar here and I'll tell all you for absolute certainty. So yeah, next week Tuesday, because next week Monday is a public holiday. So next week Tuesday, running from the Tuesday to the Friday, NEDCO has a 4-day virtual conference for entrepreneurs. So I went and I signed up because, of course, I'm interested in small business. I'm interested, for all intents and purposes, I myself is a businesswoman. So I want to be able to maximize my earning potential and my growth as a small business. And so as a result of that, I signed up for the virtual conference. So there are a couple things that I want to attend. So what you should do is check to see what they have going on each day 1 to 4. And when you look at what's happening day 1 to 4, you can pick and choose which events you want to show up at, or log in for. So I'm going to be logging in on various things. So hi to Jason, DJ Axe Pacheco. Hi Jason, I think this might be the first time I noticed you on the live. Damien, I see you saying that I have folks on the link I made yesterday and not here. I'm not understanding that, because I don't know what link you're referring to. I didn't make a link yesterday. I really don't know what you're referring to, so you're gonna have to clarify. Candace is saying she saw Antonio last night. I saw pictures of Antonio last night in a very exciting looking t-shirt. So I hope he have exciting looking t-shirts for me the next time I see him. So yes, the NEDCO Entrepreneurship Week. Please take note of it. Those of you that are small business people looking to get into entrepreneurship, please, go to the website and sign up for the virtual conference. Yvonne wants to know what's going on with Starboy and Tech Guy. Say hi to Starboy and Tech Guy. Yvonne, Starboy and Tech Guy don't have me to take on, I just have to be begging for attention from the two of them, right? Once Tech Guy, also known as 4K, sort out he poster and thing for the show, he don't have me to take on at all. So, but yeah, if you want to send shout outs to them, feel free to send shout outs to them. So that was the NEDCO thing. So this weekend, tongue was hot because it have cricket in the Oval during the day, and then Tribe has been doing their band launch all weekend long. So if you live in Port of Spain and the environs and you were out and about at any point in time, there was a possibility that you could end up in some traffic. But there was some interesting things taking place, and it was nice to see the city alive again. Living in the environs of Port of Spain and having to traverse Port of Spain fairly regularly, I would have seen the city pretty much just go dead in the course of the pandemic. So of course now the city seems to be breathing and waking back up again. And there was this really nice costume that I saw that had me thinking, hey, I might want to play a little pretty mass. So this is Adrian Raymond's section in the Lost Tribe, right, called Water. And I saw the color of the costume, and when I saw the color of the costume, I said to myself, oh good, I could see myself in that, in tongue, on the road for Carnival. So I just thought I would share the image with all. That is all. I just wanted to share the image. Me ain't telling nobody go and play mass. Me ain't telling nobody go and play mass with a specific band. Me ain't telling nobody go and play mass with a specific section in a specific band. I happen to know Adrian personally. Adrian's mom normally looks at the live. So if she's on this evening, hi, Miss Judy. Thank you so much for the gift that is your son. Adrian isn't the designer. He is the person who brings the section. I believe the designers are Janelle McCarthy and Peter Elias. And when I saw that particular section, I just loved the colors. I loved the movement. And I was like, wood. Yeah, boy. Yes, Kate, I hear you. Not a wrecker in sight on Friday night, because if you see traffic in town, left, right, and center, real traffic, it was real pressure to be able to make your way through some of them streets. Miss Judy on the live. So, hi, Miss Judy. How you doing? Thank you for your son, and thank you for being such a fan of the program. So, that is some of the positive things, because, you know, we tend to focus a lot on the negative here in Trinidad and Tobago. We like to complain. We just like to, I just say all the time, we like to shit on ourselves. We like to just talk about what is bad about here, and we don't often talk about what is good. And I felt it was necessary to point out the NEDCO Entrepreneurship Conference, virtual conference, that Tong seemed to wake up this weekend with that band launch, and, you know, people seem to be quite excited. It was the first week of people being maskless, and I went out and saw lots of people still wearing masks as they were moving about. But with that weekend, with the weekend yesterday, and all of the activities, I guess there may be surges in numbers dependent on, you know, what took place in terms of masking and the crowds and etc. etc. But yes, plenty going on. So where am I? I don't want to get lost in this. So the first thing I want to start off with. Hi, Kathleen Gibbs. Pleasant good evening to you as well. The first thing I want to start off with is the normal mischief that you get from media. Right? And I mean, it's tiring for me, really, because you read, I follow things on social media. I might from time to time go online and look at the online newspapers because I have access to a subscription. So there's a what's it, an Express and a Guardian subscription that I will look at from time to time. I don't look at the Newsday. I don't have a subscription for the Newsday. I may go and look at Newsday stories on social media, you know, when they put up their stories on Facebook from time to time. So this week, somebody actually sent me the screenshot of a story. Let me see. Let me show you the screenshot of the story. So this is the story. Fix your own potholes. And I saw that, I looked at it and I was like, what? Fix your own potholes? Now, right after I saw fix your own potholes, this showed up on my feed. Let me remove myself a little bit so you could read the whole thing. I liked this post. I took note of who the original poster was, but I wanted to show you this full quote from somebody on social media. The guy says, it's becoming more and more evident that beyond barely reading the headlines, Trinbagonians understand absolutely nothing about absolutely everything. I want to repeat that. It's becoming more and more evident that beyond barely reading the headlines, Trinbagonians understand absolutely nothing about absolutely everything. You see, just now, let me find back myself. You see that quote? That quote I felt nailed, it hit several nails on the head. We don't read everything. We will see a headline and we will run with what the headline says without necessarily reading the story. When I was younger and in media, and doing, training within media houses, they would bring in persons from, senior reporters, seasoned journalists, seasoned media practitioners from other parts of the world. Sometimes they'd bring in these consultants to teach reporters how to write stories. And at the turn of the century, because I was working in media the very late 90s into the early 2000s, not for very long, because when I realized the degree of racket and corruption inside media, I left and went into teaching. What I saw being taught in workshops was put the majority of details at the start of the story. So within the first 2 to 3 paragraphs, put everything in the first 2 to 3 paragraphs, and then the rest of the story would just be padding, right? You just pad it, and then eventually you wrap up things in the last paragraph. And reporters were being taught to do that because the general consensus was that the reading public had a short attention span. That was the general consensus, that people not going to read an entire story. People, if a story is 5, 6, 7 paragraphs long, nobody going to read all of that. If a story is half a page, nobody going to read all of that. If a story is a whole page, nobody going to read all of that. Well, worse yet, if a story is 2 pages long, nobody going to read that. They're only going to read the headline and the first 3 paragraphs. Now, 20 years later, I can say this because I've lived long enough to see it. 20 years later, the idea, the concept coming out of these media houses is that people ain't even reading beyond the headline. So they put everything that they want to put, that they want to catch people's eye in the headline. And they are clear that readers are going to run with what is in the headline. And because they know that the way in which they are now writing headlines and even the way in which they're writing stories is geared towards just getting people to read the headlines, they're not being responsible. So there is a whole clickbait approach to writing headlines. Sensational, salacious, emotive headlines that don't necessarily reflect what is in the story. But they know that everybody now on a cell phone, and what we do when we're on a cell phone is we just scroll. We scroll, we scroll, we scroll, we scroll, we scroll. So if we see a headline, we just skim the headline and we keep scrolling. And that is how we are now getting our news. The days of people sitting and reading an entire story, that's gone. People are only reading headlines. And because they know this, they can manipulate what you know and how you think about issues. So let's go back to that story. Let's go back to that headline from Guardian. So Guardian had this as their headline: fix your own potholes. And when you see a headline like that along with a picture, and I promise you, one of these days I am going to do a live with you here about using images to manipulate the public. I just have to get the right set of images, and it just means that I have to sit one of these days and go through the newspapers properly and pull out the images. But I promise you, I'm going to sit here one of these evenings and we are going to go through how pictures are used to sway your opinion on an issue. So they put up this image to go with the headline. So you have a man riding on a bicycle, massive pothole and water, right? And of course the road is really in a deplorable condition, especially after rains, with the very, very, very emotive headline, fix your own potholes. Now this ties in with the fact that we have had a lot of people coming on social media and saying, well, the government shouldn't be spending money on whatever, whether it is medicine for COVID, whether it is vaccines, whether it is national security, whether it is education, whether it is heritage preservation, whatever money is spent on, you have people jumping onto threads and saying, why they ain't fix the roads? Why they ain't fix the potholes? Why do they take the money from hospital, schools, whatever it is, and fix potholes? As if we don't know how a budget works. Only the money that is allocated for that specific line item will be used for that specific line item. You cannot move money from vaccines, you cannot move money from schools, you cannot move money from any other budget or line item to fix potholes, right? However, they put this up. When you do check, when you do actually click on the link, it is an ad for a company that providing people with materials to fix private roads. So if you, the member of the public who's scrolling through social media and looking at headlines and getting your news just based on headlines, you would read that and you would think that the Minister of Works and Transport was actually saying to people, fix your own potholes. Thankfully, we had people on the thread who clicked on the story and read the entire story. And so, this is what happened. You had Javed Ramtahal saying, clickbait, because from the article, that was never said. Then you have Elizabeth Francis saying, there you go again. And there we go again, being gullible and not reading. The headlines is very misleading. If you read the article, it says in at least 2 places, the minister advises citizens not to fix their own potholes. And Temba Cudjoe responds to Elizabeth Francis saying, this article is an advertisement for Johnny Q hardware, nothing more, and it's targeted at people with private roads, but people get riled up quick, so it makes it seem like the minister says so when clearly it is stated in the article that people should not fix their own potholes. Now, you see, this is the kind of thing this game of vex with media, like real vex with media, and when I come out and lash them, this get vex with me for being vexed about their lax standards, because we live in a country where nobody likes to be held to account for the things that they're meant to be responsible for. And I want to remind you all of this. Every so often, each of these media houses will write editorials about freedom of the press. Every single media house, from time to time, puts out editorials about freedom of the press. So they're always talking about their rights, but they don't talk about their responsibilities. And every single media house here has a responsibility to not mislead the public, to not lie to the public. But because there are no laws against them lying or misleading the public, there are no repercussions for them to face. If they lie and mislead the public, they get away with this foolishness. So that's the first thing I wanted to look at, media mischief, and to remind every single last one of us, go beyond the headline, go beyond the first couple paragraphs, take the time, set aside the time in your day, if you are reading news stories, to read the stories properly, because I swear to God, there seems to be a whole movement within media, not just locally, but internationally as well, to mislead a population just with their clickbait headlines. So you all need to be careful. The other major thing that happened this week, or that's happened at the start of the week, was the Prime Minister's press conference. So on Monday morning, hot and sweaty, 10 o'clock, somewhere between 10 and 11 o'clock, the Prime Minister had a press conference. Now, it isn't normal for the Prime Minister to have a press conference on a Monday. Normally, it would be on a Saturday, and of course, this would have been tied into the health press conferences, and the Prime Minister started doing press conferences on a Saturday whenever he had health and other issues to discuss. And of course, post-cabinet press conferences, which tend to take place on a Thursday, because cabinet is on a Thursday morning, and then they have the press conference Thursday afternoon. So this Monday there was a press conference, and I figured the press conference would have been tied into the fact that the mask mandate had been lifted. So the Prime Minister came and he spoke for quite some time about COVID, the lifting of the mask mandates, the implications of lifting the mask mandates, and thereafter he raised a couple other issues. He talked about he gave updates on finance and energy news. So I think by now all of you here are aware that there's a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. And because Russia has invaded Ukraine and is now controlling a number of things, oil and energy, fuel supplies, as well as grain and fertilizer supplies, we've had higher oil prices. We've also had inflation through higher food prices and higher fertilizer prices. So the Prime Minister came and he was talking about that. He was talking about the impact of these high energy prices and what that meant for us in terms of revenue, what it also meant for the fuel subsidy. If you were paying attention, you would realize that the Prime Minister was pointing to the fact that higher energy prices mean that the amount of money we are spending on the fuel subsidy is quite high. And I think he was hinting towards there having to be further adjustments where the fuel subsidy is concerned. When you get a chance, you should go back and listen to the early parts of that press conference. So he talked about revenue, he talked about the increased revenue, he mentioned that the increases we're seeing in terms of fuel or energy revenue is only as a result of what is going on in Europe at this point in time. So yes, it is a windfall, but it's not going to be a perpetual windfall, right? At some point in time when hostility ceases, it means that oil prices or fuel prices, energy prices are going to get back to the levels they were before, which would be lower prices. He also mentioned that the FUL report, an FUL report had been done, the report was in, and so as a result of that FUL report being completed and in his hands, he was quite disconcerted. I think he said he read it and it was it created unease, and so he was going to be laying part of it in the public domain, and then the entire report was going to go to the Police Service Commission. So I want all to remember a couple things. This is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is also the chairman of the National Security Council, and the Prime Minister is responsible for the entire cabinet. So there are a range of powers that the Prime Minister is likely to have. He also was asked a question about the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And when they came to him with a question about the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister quite rightly recused himself from mentioning or saying anything about what came out of the Law Association's vote that weekend. And it's important to understand why the Prime Minister recused himself. The Law Association is an independent organization. It's not linked to the cabinet, it's not linked to the parliament. It is a professional organization for the lawyers of Trinidad and Tobago. And the Prime Minister is not a lawyer, so he has nothing to do with the vote that took place. And when, I've forgotten the name of the reporter, when the reporter attempted to pull him in, to draw him into making some comment about what went on with the Law Association, he reminded her that professionally, his qualifications are the qualifications of a geologist. So in pointing that out, right, he, of course, ruffled some feathers. But the point he was trying to make is, I am not a lawyer. Therefore, I have no business in Law Association motions and petitions. That has nothing to do with him personally. and with him as a prime minister, and that's why he was not commenting on it. But of course, we all know that the opposition leader had plenty to say. And I'll be talking about that a little further down in the live. Yes, it was, I believe it is S. Rampasad. No, it wasn't Darren Bahau. Darren didn't raise it on Monday. It was a female journalist. I believe her last name is Rampasad. But because I can't remember and I don't want to call a wrong name, and then people accuse me of thinking that all female reporters of Indian descent have the same name, and then, you know, I end up in a back and forth. I'm not going to call the reporter's name, but it was a female reporter, I believe from The Guardian, because there was no Express reporter at the press conference. There was a TV6 reporter, Jewel Brown was there, and there was no Express reporter. My understanding is that the Express reporter covered it virtually because it would have been available online. But it was a Guardian reporter. I believe it might be Charlene Rampasad. Yes, correct, CNC3, because I have seen her doing work for CNC3. So I believe Miss Rampasad was the reporter, and the Prime Minister indicated to her very cleverly that he is a geologist. He has nothing to say about law association issues. So I want to get into some of the finance things that the Prime Minister raised, because the finance news is important news. Number one, the Prime Minister would have indicated that there's going to be a spotlight on the economy taking place at the start of September. So September 2nd will have a spotlight on the economy, and of course the Ministry of Finance is meant to be leading that. And he also said that there's a possibility that there is going to be an early budget. Now, last year, the budget was read in October. So if the Prime Minister is saying an early budget, I'm wondering, because it was in early October last year, it was like around the 9th of October. If he's saying an early budget this year, then there's a possibility the budget might be in September. And that's something we should all brace for. We should all be prepared for. So there's that, the early budget. They look at fuel prices, and then he also was talking about the windfall from earning revenue. And in the aftermath of the Prime Minister talking about that, later on in the week, we had news from the Ministry of Finance. But before we get into the news from the Ministry of Finance, I want to ask all you something. I remember this woman. Anybody remembers this lady? All you, the face look familiar to all you? This is economist Marla Dukaran. Marla Dukaran has been, for the last 6 or 7 years, advising the Minister of Finance through her writings and through speeches and stuff to float the currency, to float the TT dollar, and also to embrace IMF policies. As a matter of fact, and I'm just saying, I didn't line up photographs of all of the others. We've had Roger Hossain, Valmiki Arjun, Mariano Brown, Indira Sajawan Ali, a whole range of them, over and over and over and over again, advising Mbut to float the dollar, right? Free up the dollar against US currency and embrace IMF policies. Now, Mbut has resolutely, over the last 6 or 7 years, said to them, no. And if I have anybody who have more love for Mbut than Marla Dukaran, and I rather suspect that Mbut probably has a warm, fuzzy spot in his heart for Marla as well. So the Minister of Finance has remained resolute, and he get pong left, right, and center as an engineer, right? What this engineer know about finance and what could he possibly know? But I think we overlook the fact that he has been serving in the public service for 30 years. So 30 years of experience running different ministries, has a lot of administrative experience. And of course, the team at the Ministry of Finance are a very seasoned bunch of economists and finance specialists and stuff. And so, as a result, they would have crafted their own measures. And there's a certain amount of austerity that would have taken place when Imbert got into power. I don't know if you all, when I say Imbert got into power, when he was made Minister of Finance, I don't know if you all remember that 2015, when he became Minister of Finance, there was a shutdown of oh my goodness, parties, right? So all of these ministries and state enterprises could no longer be having parties and purchasing fete tickets and that kind of spending, and that was embargoed for however many years. Then of course there was a whole other, there were lots of other fiscal measures. It was Imbert who started to remove the fuel subsidy. What are the other things that I'm thinking of? I mean, there are a number of things. There are a range of things that would have happened, and all of it pointing towards a lot of rigorous fiscal management with a view to reducing the deficit budgets that we were having, because when he got into the position of Minister of Finance, the budget was $63 billion, and I think revenue at that point in time was 40-something billion dollars. So our deficit was pretty large. And so gradually he has been cutting down the deficit year by year by year. And of course, putting other things in place so that we don't have to end up in the hands of the IMF. In between, there have been measures that he would have taken to ease things. So of course, there would have been value-added tax change from being 15% to 12.5%. So we pay less value-added tax overall. And then, of course, moving items from the value-added tax list, making certain things zero-rated. So food would have been made zero-rated. Technology, things like computers and cell phones and the peripherals that you use for these devices, all of those things would have been made VAT-free, and there were other incentives that would have been put in place. I don't remember all of the incentives right now because I wasn't really planning to do a long finance section. But I just wanted to point out that Imbert himself put up a couple tweets on the weekend. And so this is one of the tweets. He says, "Today, Standards & Poor's," that's what S&P means. "Standards & Poor's, the international rating agency, confirmed Trinidad and Tobago's credit rating at BBB-, an investment grade rating reflective of TNT's credit strength. Standards & Poor's also improved its outlook for Trinidad and Tobago from negative to stable, the first positive rating move for Trinidad and Tobago in 15 years. So, what's important for me was the second part of it. I wasn't looking at the credit rating aspect of it too much, but I was looking at the outlook moving from negative to stable. And there's a reason it's good that we've moved from negative to stable, because we have come out of one fuel shocks. Because I don't know if you'll remember, during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, the world was buying less fuel. So energy prices were very low. And of course, throughout the pandemic, productivity was also low. So it means that economically, or the economy for a period of time would have been shrinking. So to have emerged from the pandemic, and again, I don't want to make it sound as if COVID is no longer around. COVID is around, so please be careful. But to have emerged in 2022 after what went on from 2016. From 2016 come forward, because we've had energy shocks, we've had contracted economy for a number of years. to go from negative to stable in the aftermath of all of the things that we have faced. I think this is good news, and we should be glad that there is good news. Of course, media being what media is here, there was immediate backlash, immediate going to a range of persons to ask them what are their thoughts. And the only thing they didn't say, but I said it, was that Standards and Poor's had to be a PNM party group. Because it baffles me, it blows my mind that a report like this will come out from Standards and Poor's, an independent rating agency, and every single last economic and finance guru in this country has to say negative things about the country. It's almost as if they want the country to fail. I don't know. I am trying to get Minister Imbert to agree to do an interview with us here at News Source, because I feel it's time for him to come and answer a number of questions, not just from me, but from you, the listening public. And there was also some more good news that he tweeted. I hope Ole went and spent a little bit of coins on the FCB APO, because he put this up on I think on Saturday, either Friday night or Saturday. He says, in June 2022, that was last month, First Citizens Bank launched an additional public offering of 10,869,565 shares owned by the government at $50 a share. And he says, despite the best efforts of mischievous reporters and malicious opposition politicians, the FCB public offering has been oversubscribed by $100 million. You know what that means? It means real people went out to purchase shares in this APO, which is why, I tell earlier, remember Wade Mark and them was saying all kinds of things last week about FCB, and that would have been to shake people's confidence in putting their money into FCB, into this APO. And then you come and see oversubscribed by $100 million. Who you think went and tried to purchase shares from FCB? All you must sit down and study all your head good and understand something. Not all the time the things that coming out of media and coming out of opposition spaces where they're criticizing and critiquing things, it is not all the time that the criticisms they are lobbing at things are valid criticisms. And that's why I ensured I got the deputy CEO of First Citizens Bank, Jason Julian, to come here and explain it to you all, and for me to explain to you all my experience with having purchased shares from FCB, right? Because I'm pretty certain that plenty opposition types who will come and say all kinds of negative things about the country, who will come and say all kinds of negative things about investment in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm pretty certain many of them invested in that FCB APO. Pretty certain. I could put my head on a block, right? So that was the Prime Minister's press conference. Oh no, there were other things that came out of the press conference, because he talked about the firearms user license thing. And of course, as soon as the Prime Minister talked about the FUL issue, as soon as he talked about the FUL issue, we boys show up. As soon as the Prime Minister say, what is he had to say, 11:30 or so Monday morning, and by Monday afternoon, my boy, who mouth does run faster than his legs, was all over giving interviews. All over giving interviews about FUL and why they bring up the FUL and why nobody's supposed to take the Prime Minister on, and why an independent report is an invalid report, etc., etc., etc. So I want us to look at a couple of things, right? where I reach, boy, just now. I have to scroll back up. So we're going and talk about Sha'Gary Griffith. Sorry, let me say it properly. We are going to talk about Sha'Gary Griffith. And I'm sure you all get the reference to Sha'Gary, right? So we're going to talk about Sha'Gary Griffith. And how every single time Sha'Gary name gets called is like somebody to snatch your wig. So somebody pulls Sha'Gary weave off, and so Sha'Gary have to run to every single media house to talk. So let's look at Sha'Gary for a second here.
Having tried and
just now, before you start to talk, I need to tell you something. After the Prime Minister made the announcement that he made on Monday, Gary went to a number of media houses. He would have done radio, he would have done television. And while he was doing TV, there's a television interview. He did an interview with CNC3. And I should have taken that, I should have trimmed down that clip and played it for you all. But in the clip, he talks about how the Prime Minister, the government, the PNM, and he conflates all three, right? He conflates the Prime Minister with the government and the PNM and makes all of it interchangeable. And he says that they leak information to, they conduct independent investigations and then take the information and leak the information to the 3 R's. So somebody sent me the link to the CNC3 interview. And Gary is sitting there talking to Jason Williams, so JW, who does the Morning Brew, and calling my name normal in his mouth. Like normal. The way Gary continues to call my name in his mouth, you swear me and he at some point in time in the past did meet up in a fete, and I hit him like the wickedest wine, the wickedest slam in a fete, and he can't forget my name, like not at all. So Gary sits down in his interview and starts talking about how the government does do independent investigations and take information and leak it to the 3 R's. And the 3 R's are Rhea, Ren, and Rhoda. My name. Explain to me what the ass my name doing in Gary Griffith mouth. Explain to me what evidence does Gary Griffith have that anybody in government is be leaking information to me. Up to now, there is no way he could provide any evidence of that. But he liked to give him mouth license. He liked to have him mouth pelting going down the track. And Gary, I will say this to you. You continue, Sha'Gary Griffith, to let your mouth pelt and run down the track and see if me, Lil Pocket Rocket, ain't put you back in your effing place. Continue to call my name in your mouth. In any case, I want to play this and I'm going to stop it at points to explain a couple things to you all. Because Gary, right? Gary, just sit down and say so many things and he just forget how he just be contradicting himself. So I'm going to take a few minutes, not too long, to show you all how Sha'Gary Griffith just be contradicting himself. So let's go. And I am apologizing now for having to make you all listen to this whiny voice. The only thing Gary in doing this thing is cry.
And 2 times before, Prime Minister Keith Rowley seems intent on having a third go at his failed strategy of hiring persons to do an investigation, paying them well, and then coincidentally, you can see these reports may end up leaked to a specific media house come Sunday with a full-page splash of lies. But this one, however, now includes the plan to use parliamentary cover to hide in an act of cowardice.
So there are a couple of things here. One, the Prime Minister, as chairman of the National Security Council, if oh my goodness, if intelligence, that's the word I was looking for, if intelligence comes to any of the persons sitting on the National Security Council and they bring that information before the Prime Minister, he is tasked to act. How would it look if the Prime Minister is told that there is a racket going on within the TTPS that involves firearms, that involves bribes, that involves what appears to be hundreds of millions of dollars in monies crossing hands, ending up into pockets, so that citizens here, private citizens here, end up with a massive arsenal of guns? Is the Prime Minister meant to sit on that and do nothing? If the Prime Minister is told about this, if this is brought to the Prime Minister's attention and he does nothing about it, is the Prime Minister not then shirking his duty and not acting in the best interest of the public? And yet, here we have Gary Griffith upset that the Prime Minister has acted on information and evidence that has come to him. The other interesting thing is this. He talks about a report, and he talks about it being a one-man report. Now, my understanding is that the report may have been written by one person, or the report may have one person's name at the end of it. That's the Barrington report. But it's more than one person who assisted with compiling the report. And my understanding is that one of the persons who played a role in compiling the report is actually a good friend of the former commissioner. As a matter of fact, such a good friend of the former commissioner that he actually recommended and referred the former commissioner for the job of commissioner of police. But here I want to say that. Here I want to say that somebody who endorsed him eventually had an issue with actions and activities that was taking place under his tenure as Commissioner of Police. But let us continue.
I dare you, Kit Rowley. Your name, man. If this report is so disturbing, then do not be a coward and hide in Parliament to discredit others, as you did with your failed email gate attempt. Come out in the open and say it. I dare you.
Now here's the thing. Laying or tabling a report in the public domain normally happens through the Parliament. So this is grand charge, and this is grand charge of the highest order. Because if the Prime Minister wants the public to have access to the report, or to have access to the executive summary of the report, because he's not giving us the entire report, the full report, unredacted and unedited, is going to the Police Service Commission, as it should. Whether or not Gary had applied to be Commissioner of Police, a report like that points to an FUL racket, a firearms user license racket occurring within the TTPS, has to go to the Police Service Commission. Why? Because whoever is the sitting commissioner, whether it's the acting commissioner or an appointed commissioner, that person will have to deal with the persons who are involved in the racket. The way Gary is talking, you would swear that the racket ended and started with him. And for me, that's the curious thing here. Griffith is acting as if he knows about the racket, even though when the talk came up about the racket, he was claiming to know nothing. So now all of a sudden, Gary is sounding like, one, he know about the racket. Two, it looked like the details or the evidence that was found pointing towards him. So now he is worried about the details and the evidence. Whereas in the past, Griffith was basically saying he don't know anything about the racket. This ain't had nothing to do with him. He didn't directly have anything to do with any bribes that may or may not have passed. And so I am wondering, well, why are you so worried? Because if when you were functioning as Commissioner of Police, you didn't have a hand in the racket, then you should be glad that the report is coming out and would show that you had no hand in it. That whatever it is occurred without your knowledge, and other members of the TTPS were the ones that were carrying on with whatever corruption or racket was taking place. I would think that you would have been happy about that. Instead, you are upset about this report, and upset about this report to the point where you come and you do your video to challenge the Prime Minister to come out in the public domain with the report. The Prime Minister said what he had to say at a public press conference. And when they attempted to ask him direct questions about Griffith, he said he was not responding to that because the racket that took place within the TTPS didn't happen with one person. It would have occurred with a network of persons. So removing Gary as Commissioner of Police doesn't necessarily put an end to the racket. So it means now that the Police Service Commission must get a copy of this report and must act on this report to put an end to the racket if it still exists within the TTPS. The firearms racket didn't start under Gary. It was occurring long before that. There are prior reports. What I am made to understand is that during his tenure as Commissioner of Police, it became far more sophisticated. That is my understanding, that there's a manner in which it became a very sophisticated corruption scam. So hopefully, when the Prime Minister puts the executive summary in Parliament and it is made public for all of us, because every document that goes into the Parliament becomes accessible to the entire public. And that is what Gary is worried about. That is why he grand charging and making noise and talking about the Prime Minister is trying to protect himself under Parliament. The Prime Minister is not trying to protect himself under Parliament. Once you put the document in Parliament, it means 1.1 million adults or 1.4 million adults and children have access to that report. And once the Parliament website up and running, the report is there in perpetuity. So anytime you need to read the executive summary of that report, you will be able to read the executive summary of that report. And I am looking forward to reading the executive summary. But there's one other thing that Gary says here that I want to be able to refute.
The hypocrisy is also alarming. Politicians hiring civilians with no law enforcement authority, submitting a report and...
Just now, Gary just say politicians hiring civilians with no law enforcement authority. Let me rewind.
No law enforcement authority.
Gary Griffith hired an individual with no law enforcement authority to have oversight of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Force's gun armory. I telling all you what I telling all you. Gary Griffith, as Commissioner of Police, hired a civilian with no law enforcement experience. The person had certificates in handling weapons from different places in different parts of the world, right? But no law enforcement background. No background in Army, no background in TTPS, nothing like that. Gary had a civilian that he wanted to put in charge of or having oversight of the armory, doing audits of guns and them kind of things. So Gary could come wrong me. Gary can't come wrong me. Gary cannot come wrong me.
Submitting a report, and this is disturbing to read, and he wants action taken. But hear this. When Special Branch, which is a bona fide law enforcement agency, submits a report on one of his own, he runs to say that this is not evidence and fact, and he will ignore it. In a recent press conference, when he scolded the media, if they even...
Gary is a man in, what is it? March of this year. Let me double check. I was supposed to bring up that image, you know, and I forget to share that image onto the software here. But Gary is a man in May of this year, the 10th of May 2022. I could bring that in, boy. Do I have? Oh God, no, it could take too long to bring that in. Actually, no, just now. I will come back to this shortly. Let me pull it up on a different screen so I could see it, because I'd like all to see all of the evidence. I don't want at any point in time anybody say that me support with is a saying with evidence, right? So let me just change up my sources here. Let me go back to this and let me bring this up. See, I ain't lie. The 10th of May 2022, Gary says that the special branch report is not fact or evidence, right? 2022, he said it. The special branch report is not fact or evidence. A Gail Alexander story in The Guardian. The special branch report is not fact or evidence. That was Gary back in that was Gary back in May of this year. Then he come to say what is he had to say.
Having tried and failed 2 times.
Yes, now let me move it forward a little bit, right? Because we need to hear Gary say this all over again.
Enforcement authority submitting a report, and this is disturbing to read, and he wants action taken. But hear this. When Special Branch, which is a bona fide law enforcement agency, submits a report on one of...
So back in May, a Special Branch report is not fact or evidence, right? Back in May, he says that a Special Branch report is not fact or evidence. And he also went on to say that he said, addressing the issue in an interview on I-95 FM yesterday, Griffith said it was strictly an intelligence report and not an evidential one, and there is a difference between intelligence and evidence. I want all to remember that. Griffith, back in May, said that there is a difference between an intelligence report and an evidence report. And now, coming forward, July 2020, twisting him out all the way around and talking out the next side of it. So in May, he talk out at this side of him out, and in July, he talk out at this side of him out. Listen, 3 months ain't passed good yet, you know. Barely 2 months passed, and he moved from talking out at this side to talking out at this side.
His own, he runs to say that this is not evidence and fact, and he will ignore it. In a recent press conference, when he scolded the media if they even mentioned my name, and if he was unable to answer any questions, he said he was a geologist. This is the same Kitroni who said he received a report.
When the Prime Minister said he was a geologist, it was not in reference to a question about Gary Griffith. It was in reference to a question about the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago. This is the extent to which Sha'Gary does start to hallucinate. He does think everything is about him.
Into FUL licenses by persons that his own government handpicked. This being his 3rd attempt, as I said, and that he was sending it to the Police Service Commission.
You know what? I done point out at least 3 ways in which Gary contradict himself. We need to go through the whole 6 minutes of Gary contradicting himself. What I will say is this, because I was trying to get to a particular point in the interview. Further down in the interview, he starts talking about who the information going to be leaked to. And he catch himself in time. So early on in the week, when he called my name on the interview with JW, with the 3 R's, and then in this rant here, because by that time I put out a post on Facebook to say it looked like he want a bamba, right? It looked like he looking like he want a bamba. So when he realized that I realized he calling my name and he have no evidence to back up any of the things that he's saying in interviews all over the place, he pulled back himself, and in this particular video rant, he only talked about Denise Wren and Rhea Tate. Gary, if you name man, I dare you. I dare you to repeat the foolishness you was saying on media earlier this week. I dare you. Your name man, you come outside and call my name in your mouth. I am daring you to come outside and call my name in your mouth. Because I sit down here, me one, set like Mapapi for you. Go ahead. So that is Sha'Gary Griffith and we could, we could wrap up the Sha'Gary Griffith part. So now, let me switch to we girl Sushila. So Sushila was counting egg in foul bottom. And for those of you that are looking on that don't know this saying, that is tell you, the old people is tell you must never count egg in foul bottom. What does that mean? Do not make plans based on something that you ain't see yet. Don't go and buy cat in bag. Madam Sushila thought that the set of UNC lawyers she had who was making noise inside the law association would have been able to swing the petition in her favor, and that did not happen. So when the petition to remove Reggie Armour as Attorney General, or rather the petition, the confidence, whether lawyers have confidence in Reggie Armour as Attorney General, when that blew up in she face and she realized that she went and cut up a set of seasoning and put oil to heat in pan, and she getting ready to make an omelette, and it ain't had no egg. Sit down and make a set of plan. Done decide she baking sponge cake, she making omelette, she making whatever it is she making, and not one egg come out of foul bamsi. Poor Sushila in pain. So Sushila in so much pain. Sushila started to take a turn in the law association backside, and this is where things got to. So we now have a situation where, okay, so I wanted to look at the statistics first before I get into what it is Sushila say. And there's something I want you all to look at. 310 attorneys voted against the motion for the AG to resign. So that means 234, right, were in favor of there being no confidence in the Attorney General. 310 was against it. So Sushila was counting on and reliant on her attorneys, or the attorneys within LATT that are affiliated with the United National Congress. And she didn't realize that there were other attorneys who don't see themselves as being affiliated with United National Congress. And they voted in the manner in which they voted. Now, it's only from around 2010 that I began to realize how political and how politicized the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago was. But then again, it's only in 2010 that I began to realize how political and politicized a number of these various organizations, civil society and otherwise, are. So up until 2010, I wasn't thinking about the Law Association or lawyers in that way. But 2010 to now has wizened me up and opened my eyes. And I'm beginning to see, or I'm seeing clearly, how a number of organizations here have positioned themselves politically. I'm not even thinking about it in terms of ethnicity. They have positioned themselves politically. And because the Law Association for quite some time has often been led by lawyers that seem to be or appear to be more aligned towards the opposition, I think the opposition leader felt that she had a very strong chance of the Law Association voting a solid and robust no confidence in Reggie Armour as Attorney General. And so there would have been a bit of a constitutional crisis in the country. Because if you have all of the lawyers, or if you have the majority of lawyers coming out and saying that they don't have Armour in high confidence, they no longer trust Armour to be the Attorney General, then it puts pressure on the government to have to change its Attorney General, right? And so the opposition leader was hoping for that, and that didn't happen. Miraculously, it didn't happen. Now, the Law Association is a private association. It doesn't belong to any arm or branch of the government. It is a guild, as it were. So the same way there's a medical practitioners association, and the same way there's a media association, there's the law association. And within the law association, the lawyers join, they pay fees, and I think through paying fees, that's how they are allowed to practice after they've been called to the bar. Kamla Persad-Bissessar is a lawyer. The Prime Minister pointed out that he is not a lawyer, he's a geologist. And so Kamla Persad-Bissessar was free to speak about her opinions about what would have taken place as a lawyer. But I don't think that as an opposition leader, as a politician in our parliament, I don't think she should have overstepped her boundaries as a politician and jump into law association business. So if she was upset, if she was pissed off about what happened at the petition, at the meeting where they would have taken the vote on the petition, I could understand as a lawyer she coming out and talking. But I don't understand how, as a political leader for a party and as the opposition leader, how she would come out and decide that she was going to castigate the law association in the way in which she castigated the law association. So in her statement on the 20th of July, she says, the hypersensitivity and attempts to dictate what are acceptable free speech and expression by opinion writers in the media are dangerous to open discourse and freedom of expression when it comes to uncomfortable and complex topics. When it comes to public accountability and national integrity, there is no sacred cow, and I have a constitutional duty to raise valid questions in the national interest. You have a constitutional duty, yes, but the thing about it is this. The vote that took place at the LATT meeting would have been a democratic vote. All of the members of the Law Association were able to, whether in person or virtually, vote on the petition. It's not a situation where one or a handful of persons took a vote. It's not a situation where everybody wasn't allowed to weigh in and give their opinion on this particular matter. And it is not a situation where the Law Association is obligated to make its vote and to make the process by which the petition was heard public, because this is an issue for lawyers, not for the wider public. The lawyers of the Law Association were the ones that took issue with what would have transpired with the Attorney General, and it was about whether or not the lawyers felt that they could continue to recognize him as the most senior member of the bar, because that's what the Attorney General is. The Attorney General is the most senior member of the bar. That's what that position allows for. And so the meeting for the petition took place within the space that it was meant to take place. And Kamla was so confident that it was going to yield a particular type of outcome that when she got a different outcome, she killed Kitty. The woman, like, she collapsed and then shows up and trying to bully the Law Association. And to the point where Kamla decides she going and call out people's legal fees. So a post gets put up where all of these lawyers, Michael Quamina, Gilbert Peterson, Russell Martineau, Terrence Barrett, who else they put up, boy? Colin Kangaloo, Ravi Rajkumar, right? All of these lawyers, the monies that they would have earned from getting legal briefs from the state, that's put up. And in one instant, they point out that one person is the brother of the president of the Senate. And I looked on and I thought to myself, imagine Kamla Persad-Bissessar after 2010 to 2015, where over $1 billion was paid out to lawyers in legal fees, where lawyers was charging $100,000 to write a pre-action protocol letter. A pre-action protocol letter, you know, no, 100,000, not 1,000, $100,000. You had men like Ramdeen and them, I think, if I'm not mistaken, charging the state $100,000 to write a pre-action protocol letter. And then you come and putting up people's earnings from plying the trade between 2015 and 2022. But of course, you know, Facebook is a place, don't forget. So people were able to put up what the legal fees were like from 2010 to 2015, right? Thank you very much, Josiane. $1.4 billion when Kamala decided she was going to start a make work program for lawyers. It was CPEP for lawyers, right? The slightest thing, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. And so this particular post here listed all of the money that people earn, or all of the money that some of the major lawyers earned under Kamala Persad-Bissessar. But what Kamala was attempting to do was to indicate or to show or to say that these lawyers were indebted to the state, and so because they were indebted to the state, it meant that they were singing for their supper. And I looked at the irony of Kamala accusing people of singing for their supper, because Kamala does not have the moral authority to be able to talk to anybody about what they are worth and what they are not worth. For the simple fact that as a lawyer who has barely ever practiced in our court system here, in our judicial system here, Kamala took the first opportunity that presented itself to award herself silk. So she sat in power and she presided over a process to award herself silk when she knows she did not deserve it at all. So Kamala not in a position to talk about anybody, any lawyer, and what they're earning and not earning. And to reiterate, we operate in a system where the law association is a private association. It's not a public association. It is a membership association. They have their rules, they have their guidelines. They are meant to serve the public interest, yes, but that's entirely up to them. It's not a situation where they fall under any ministry or any there's no line ministry or there's no arm of the government that has any sort of power over them in that way. They are a professional organization. And when I say professional, I mean they are an organization for people within a particular profession. And so, if they have their meeting and they put out to the public, these are what the results are, Kamala does not have any right to show up and berate them and tell them, put out the transcripts for everybody to see. What's the point of that? Well, hopefully LATT will hold Kamala to account. I mean, they would have put out a statement. I saw the statement from LATT. There's a statement that they would have put out. When did they put out this statement, boy? They put it out on the 22nd. So 2 days after she would have issued her statement, they put that out. Israel Khan also issued a statement where, he well buff Kamala, push she in she place. And, a number of persons would have spoken out about how the opposition leader jumped out she whole self and exposed her weakness, exposed that she thought that this petition was a done deal. And for me, that's the disconcerting thing, that the opposition, all of the opposition, seemed to feel that this petition was a foregone conclusion. So it makes you ask questions about what really is going on inside of the Law Association. Has the Law Association become a politicized entity? Is it independent or is it a politicized entity? And those, for me, are some of the important questions coming out of this. So that is Kamala, and she missteps on them. And now I want to get to, we're coming to the end of things here now. So it's the final thing that I wanted to look at, the final issue. And I wanted to look at how we sell ourselves short. And by that I mean how we allow people to use us, how we allow people to tap into whatever are our insecurities or whatever are the things that we are most anxious about. And then once they have tapped into our insecurities, they use that to exploit us. And of course, once I start talking about exploitation, I had to talk about Bakra Johnny and Bakra Jane. So, a couple of weeks ago, Philip Edward Alexander would have put up a post about how he was doing job recruitment for people. And in doing his job recruitment for people, he basically said, pay him $50 and give him all your personal data. Now I saw that and it riled me up. It upset me, and it upset me to my core. Because I thought to myself, how do you see people in a position of vulnerability? How do you see people who need a job and ask them for the last $50 and their personal information? Now, the $50, that is part of the grift. And I like to talk about Philip and people like Philip and Suzette and people like Suzette, right, who are white adjacent people. I like to talk about them running their various grifts and scams and trying to pull wool over people's eyes, because it seems to be all they know, just finding ways to hoodwink people. So Philip tried this $50 for a walk thing, and I scuttled it because as soon as I could, I put out a slew of vacancies, and I continue to put out vacancies. As I become aware of them, as people send them to me, I put the vacancies out. But it was more than the vacancies, and it was more than the $50. It was the personal information, the personal data, the fact that, and we're dealing with Philip for now, we're going to deal with Suzette in a little bit. The fact that Philip would tell people he wanted their personal data to put in a database. Now the thing is this, if I want people to get a job, me personally, so let's say I, News Source, me, Rhoda, I want 10 all who here on this live, Tay, Curlin, Renee, Leandra, Petal, Javon, I want all of you to get jobs. Why do I need to store all your personal data? Why would I want all you to send me all your personal data to store in a system? If not because I planning to use all your personal data. So when the announcement of the Job Susu racket was made, I immediately said on a number of threads, this thing have a Cambridge Analytica feel to it. And I was not wrong, because 14th of July, this letter is issued, and this letter is sent to a private company. Dear Sir, Madam, the Citizens Union of Trinidad and Tobago is an activist organization that was created to fight public and private sector abuse. We have a membership system where we use the strength of our numbers to challenge and fight wrongs that affect our society. In these challenging economic times, we want to partner with small and medium-scale businesses like yours to drive sales by leveraging our membership. I want all of you to understand something. Let me slow it down and let me talk about this. Philip has an activist organization. Let us assume it is registered as an NGO, right? Because it's Philip we're dealing with here. So let us assume Philip have this Citizens Union of Trinidad and Tobago, and he has it registered as an NGO, a non-governmental organization, and as he say, it is an activist organization. If it is an activist organization, right? If CUTT, Citizens Union, is an activist organization that trying to push against social ills, I have no idea what social ills CUTT has ever stood up and spoken out against and dealt with here. I'm not aware. But I ain't want to jump ahead of myself. Maybe they did do something like that. Explain to me how is an activist organization now asking businesses to advertise with them? Advertise with them how? Advertise with them for what? If you are an activist organization and you are asking businesses to advertise with you, what have you then become? Are you now a media house? Are you a magazine? Are you advertise where, how, what? You all seeing the lack of logic here? Because if I am running an activist organization, I would reach out to businesses and ask them to support, to donate, to contribute. Philip is saying we are an activist organization and we want you to advertise with us. We're trying to bring sales for you. So this activist organization is suddenly trying to drive sales. So it's gone from activism to marketing and sales and saying we're going to use our membership database. And this is where it gets very sticky for me. So Philip have a membership database. People would have joined CUTT under one premise, right? They joined CUTT because they want to be a part of activism. So they join in it because they want to fight public and private sector abuse. That is why they joined CUTT. And then Philip has one of his employees writing to small businesses, right? Writing to small and medium-sized businesses to say, we want to drive sales towards you. So we're going to use our membership base to drive sales towards you. Now let's go on to the next part of the letter. So in addition to our vast benefits, me know what them vast benefits is, a newsletter which is emailed to our 10,000 and growing weekly CUTT membership. 10,000, you know. As of this week, I have 53,000 followers. Maybe I should be telling people advertise with me. So 10,000 CUTT membership. Your business gets a welcome post in this newsletter. Below are the benefits of becoming a member and payment methods. So Philip sending out a newsletter to 10,000 people, and he is now going to be using the newsletter as a source of advertising to these 10,000 people. So the 10,000 people who joined CUTT so that they could be activists and they could help with private and public sector abuse have now become Philip's private audience for driving business and sales. So Philip basically using all your membership, all your personal data to be able to generate business for himself. Because when the money is sent to CUTT, right, or when the money is sent, me don't know if the money going to CUTT, because here it says, in these, right, so your business is listed for 12 months in our quarterly. Free advertising on CUTT's Facebook page, which has over 8,000 followers. One free 45-second ad on the Philip Alexander and CUTT show, $2,500 in value. So here's what have me confused. You want, basically, they're going to pay to advertise with you. right? That you want these businesses to pay to advertise with you. And then you're telling them that the ad is a free ad. So if they're paying you to advertise with you, even if they don't pay the $2,500, if they give you $1,000, then the ad, the 45-second ad, they've paid $1,000 for it, right? So one free 45-second ad and a discounted advertising rates on the Philip Alexander and CUTT show. The cost per show is $2,500. Cost per show to business affiliate members $1,000 for 1 month. Ad runs weekly for 4 weeks. So Philip Edward Alexander is using membership in his activist organization as a pool for selling advertisement. So if 10,000 or earlier sign up with CUTT and 8,000 or earlier following Philip on his pages, basically Philip is saying, I have this membership base and I will sell ads to my membership base. Now I want all to understand something. Monetizing your social media presence is nothing new, right? There's nothing weird or odd about that, because you could place ads on your pages. I could place ads on my YouTube channel. I can do those things to be able to monetize the content that I am producing. But if I turn around and ask all you here, right, the however many thousands of you all are going to look at this live this week, if I tell all you, send me all your personal data and send me all your email address, and so that way I know I sending out, when I'm sending out things, I'm sending it out to 10,000, 20,000, maybe all 53,000 or earlier. The minute I am doing that, what I am saying to advertisers is that I am monetizing my followers. I have taken you and I have turned you into monetary value. That's what I've done. So it's not a simple situation of I place an ad inside here or I place a product inside here. So, for I hold up a cup, right? And if you see the cup and you like the cup, you decide you want the cup. Or, this is I don't know how good an example this is. This hand sanitizer, right? This hand sanitizer from Angostura. Angostura had given this out at the start of the pandemic. So if I spritz in my hand on this live with Angostura sanitizer, and all they say, who good? Hand sanitizer, boy, from Angostura. We go in and buy that from Angostura. Angostura can then pay me for having held up the product and done product placement on my live, which is different because you are here of your own volition and you're watching it. But let me decide that I take in all of your information and then channeling ads to all you, funneling ads to all you. Listen, Trinidad have smart men and Trinidad have a set of smart men. I want all you to understand the difference between a smart man and a smart man. And you see this character. This character is a smart man. He's not a smart man. He's a smart man. And all you have to be real careful about the smart men and them. Because the smart men and them just come and talk to you in your face and sell you certain dreams in your face. The entire time Philip telling people, I want to do a career drive. At no point in time did Philip mention to anybody that the personal data he going to be collecting going to be part of a database that's going to end up in the hands of advertisers or small businesses that need to advertise. At no point in time was that mentioned. But the minute I saw this thing about signing up and personal information, I said to myself, this racket have levels to it. There are multiple levels to this racket. It's not just pass on money. It is also pass on your data, and your data going to be weaponized. It is going to be used for something. So that is this smart man. Now I want to come back to Bakra Jane, right? I want to come back and talk about Bakra Jenny. So this is, oh God, Suzette Lowe. And I want to show you something with Suzette. All you remember when Suzette used to look like this? I want a little watch that version of Suzette, and I want a little watch this version of Suzette. What you notice? Tell me what you notice when you watch that version of Suzette versus this version of Suzette. What you making out? Let me see who let me see who making it out. So in the caption here, because this is a recent picture, she say your girl catch a little tan today. Let me show you Suzette over the years, right? Let me show you Suzette over the years. So these are Suzette's pictures from over the years. These are various social media pictures. Hair sleek, pulled back, light complexioned, right? Always a particular look and profile. This is Suzette. Blonde hair, fair complexion, hair blow out straight, right? Always the hair blow out straight, right? 2 days ago, Suzette put up this picture, rocking the fro. All I remember, she joined the PDP, right? And because she joined the PDP, she had to switch up. She had to switch up how she looking a little bit. So she joined the PDP, and all of a sudden, interestingly enough, Suzette starts putting up these pictures with herself with darker skin, right? This is the darkest I have seen Suzette Lowe look. Darker skin and untidy hair, right? And so she has darker skin with untidy hair, and she's talking about rocking the fro. So Suzette's idea of black hair, what Suzette thinks black hair is when her hair is untidy and uncombed, right? So in her idea, in her mind, a fro, an afro, is when her hair is untidy. Suzette Lowe has become the Rachel Dolezal of Trinidad and Tobago, right? The Rachel Dolezal of Trinidad and Tobago, because Suzette, looking like a frizzle fowl in this picture, and put up this picture and talking about she rocking the fro. Now you see, when you have persons who are not of African descent deciding that they want to appropriate things that belong to black people, whether it is black hair, black skin, black culture, I have a problem with that. And you see, we heading towards emancipation, and I felt it was very important for us to pause for a second and look at the fact that Suzette is baiting black people. Because I'm pretty certain that by emancipation, Suzette gonna come out full black, head wrap, right? And some sort of ethnic clothing to position herself as being aligned with and an ally of the black community. And coupled with that is the subtle darkening of her skin. So these are the earlier pictures of Suzette. This is Suzette now, right? So she has changed the foundation that she is using. And she is now, not that one. Where is the picture that I want to use? There is that picture for you to see what she looks like Right, and look at the picture in the middle versus the pictures on the end. Suzette Dolezal, Suzette Kojo. All of a sudden, Suzette is now a black woman. She rocking a fro and she catch a tan. All because Suzette Lowe has joined the PDP. She's been made the deputy political leader of the PDP. And the PDP is looking to appeal to an Afro-descended base. It is looking to become an alternative for the African-descended community in Trinidad and Tobago. And so this is the foolishness Suzette feels she has to do. This panders to black people. It insults black people. And what Suzette Lowe is basically saying is that she has nothing else to offer a black voter base other than her attempting to fit into the black community by looking a particular way. Listen, I don't even know what to say again. I don't know what to say again. So I just wanted to draw it to all your attention. I wanted all to see the foolishness that's taking place. I wanted all to grasp the level of foolishness that has been going on. And to remind you, don't sell yourself short. Don't sell your vote short. And I'm not telling you who to vote for. Whoever you want to vote for, that's entirely your business. But don't let somebody come and mamagaya with messy hair and a change in the foundation, right? So Suzette has, I see Barbara asking who was she handlers before the PDP, the UNC, right? So her handlers were the UNC. She jumped from the UNC to Watson Duke, which in my opinion is a lateral move because Watson Duke is very much aligned with the United National Congress. So I looked at this and I thought to myself, this is madness. This is absolute madness. But you know what? So we stop. That we are a people like that. We're capable of this kind of foolishness. In any case, folks, it is 9:minutes and it is time for me to wrap up. So thank you so much for spending some time with me this evening, and I will see you guys next week Sunday. I'm sending this out for Gary. I know he doesn't miss the wine. You all have a good week.